Welcome Lights Out family to another KK's exploration of the less charted world of horror movies. As I will be reviewing Argentine director Demian Rugna's double movie feature. Perhaps we can have an exploration of the horror flicks offered by his contemporary Latin American directors from one country to another. From Mexico and director Isa Lopez, we have Vuelven, or translated as They Return, but it was widely known as Tigers Are Not Afraid in the Western world. The 2017 fantasy horror flick garnered an approval rating of 97% on Rotten Tomato. As a reviewer eloquently put it, Tigers Are Not Afraid draws on childhood trauma for a story that deftly blends magical fantasy hard-hitting realism and leaves a lingering impact. With echoes of a Pan labyrinth, horror fans should keep an eye on this movie. Not to be confused with the James Wan produced The Curse of La Llorona, released in the same year of 2018. La Llorona from Guatemalan director Jairo Bustamante delved into the familiar folklore sweeping across the whole Latin America of the weeping woman known as La Llorona. This was an insight into how an evil person struggled to stave off karma that was to be bestowed on him.
Semi-ahli والقواعد كأكلنا بتشنكا كوشيان شكاكم جتشلين شقياكا está atrás.
From Venezuela, we had La Casa del Fin de los Tiempos, or The House at the End of Time. Alejandro Hidalgo's 2013 film was the country's highest-grossing horror movie in history, which looked into a woman's plight of trying to uncover the secret of her family murders which she was imprisoned for. She believed it was due to supernatural forces, and we as audience had to go on this chilly unraveling with her. After losing contact with a military base, a high mountain unit is sent to investigate. Upon arrival, they find only a woman in chains. Isolation and the impossibility of escape serve to undermine the soldiers' judgment. Colombian director Jaime Osorio Marquez's 2011's movie certainly gave us an impression of a classic war film, or at least a thriller like The Raid. But it seems like the squad, as the title implied, was going to be picked off one by one. This 2018 British-Mexican-Ecuadorian production brought a British journalist, Emily, deceitfully takes an assignment in London to research and uncover the truth of an unspoken event. With the assistance of her photographer friend and several Mexican locals, they traveled to the mysterious island and soon discover the danger which awaits them. Ecuadorian director Sebastian Mantilla and co-director Rahil Abbas went to the actual island to shoot the movie.
They are wise to stay away.
Known as good manners in the Western world, directors Marco Dutra and Juliana Rojas from Brazil gave us a whimsical story of Clara, a nurse being hired by a wealthy expecting mother, and how her life turned topsy-turvy one fateful night, close to the delivery date. From the trailer of the movie, one could not help but feel this 2017 award-winning film was a visual splendor. Our entry from Uruguay, also known as The Silent House, was perhaps the most prominent one on this list, and had a Hollywood remake starring Elizabeth Olsen. Gustavo Hernandez's film from the year 2011 was based from a true story from the 1940s, which followed a man and his daughter as they moved into an old abandoned rural house to get it ready for sale, something that will prove to be their worst nightmare. This film gained national fame for being shot in a single take, and Hernandez shot with a shoestring budget with a second-hand camera. The story is about a night that Diego Martinez is locked inside the morgue of the regional hospital of Encarnacion and recounts the paranormal events that the security guard spent. The synopsis encapsulated this 2019's Paraguayan horror movie from the director Hugo Cardozo.
Señor.
Maria Francisca, a wealthy young heiress, and her friend Mariana de Castro, a young Protestant widow, are accused of witchcraft and taken before the Spanish Inquisition of Lima, Peru. From Bolivian filmmaker Jacques Avila from the year 2011, as the tagline of the movie implied, this is a story of the horrors of the Inquisition. The title is the Latin word for witchcraft. La Casa Lobo is a stop-motion animated film that marked Cristobal Leon and Joaquim Conchina's feature film directorial debut. By looking at the trailer, if you do not feel grossed out by what you have seen, I suppose this animated Chilean horror film is for you. It told a story of a young woman who took refuge in southern Chile after escaping from a colonial dignidad, an isolated colony in the post-World War II Chile by immigrant Germans, notorious for torture and murder of dissidents. Another brilliant retelling of the horrible past of a country by using a film as a cathartic medium.
Du hattest recht. Du musst kommen.
Es con María, pero le hará bien. María.
Okay. To start with, the movie is known as Terrified. And we're not talking about Art the Clown, that's Terrifier. We had been groomed to understand the concept of haunted mansions or house, and in Asian context, a haunted apartment was a norm. The Argentine hantu did their haunting to a new level, affecting a whole neighborhood. From the onset, it was full-fledged viscera from Rugna, from one set piece to the next, and there was no letting up. While this was not a dish for the faint-hearted, the curiosity to uncover the truth was still able to hook audiences. It was down to these three to solve the issue, not your typical Ghostbusters. I have enjoyed some sort of paranormal team dynamics, like Lin Shane and the boys in Insidious with their chemistry and bantering. The Warrens and their team in The Conjuring weren't that bad, as they looked professional and seemingly knew what they were doing. But for Dr. Maura Albrecht and her colleagues Jano and Rosenstock and our protagonist Funes, they weren't seemed to be prepared for the supernatural repercussions they were about to face. Even as seasoned horror fans, we might not have a clue what evil was shrouding this wretched neighborhood. Although it was stated that this was based on true events, I like the open-endedness Rugna left the story, and there was no reliance on folklore or religions in a country where the current elected pope is from. However, I wondered of that three houses aspect. Was it a reference to the Holy Trinity? And whatever evil present was mocking the humankind. Rugna exquisitely made use of some horror tropes and elements that he knew would make his audience skin crawl. The non-linear way of storytelling can be befuddling, but it was certainly a choice from the writer-director, which he bookended it nicely. What Demian Rugna concocted in the final act was a scaringly trippy ride that even if you had your seatbelts on, you will not be prepared for the backlash. And you will unlikely recover from the scars of the visuals soon. I could not divulge too much further into the plot, but there are a lot of parallels which could be seen with Rugna's next and more highly acclaimed horror feature. It was reported in 2018 that Guillermo del Toro was going to develop a Hollywood remake of Terrified for Fox Searchlight, with a script adapted by Sasha Gervasi, who previously written The Terminal, and Demian Rugna returning to direct. 6 years on, there was no news of the production. I would give Aterrados 7 out of 10, so catch it if you had not. My interest for Cuando, acecha, maldad was from the Dead Meat podcast annual horror awards, which gave a lot of props to this Shudder-produced film, which at that time was not apparent that it was from the same director of Aterrados. That shocking kill would be better if I had not known beforehand. Therefore, I will not spoil it for you guys. The Yazalo brothers, Pedro and Jaime, which gave me echoes of the Hess brothers from Signs, and even the Winchester brothers from Supernatural when they had to go investigate all the paranormal ongoings. They were just minding their business and tending the land of their landowner, Ruiz, before they found a dismembered person somewhere in their ranch. That was the first clue of something was not right, as you don't witness such gruesome disembowelment any day. Then you stumbled into a house where you spotted the living case of gluttony from the movie 7, warning you about the end of mankind.
Alrighty then.
Ruiz, the landowner, and the police were warned, but remained skeptical while the Yezulo brothers did the right thing to flee, but little did they know the Evil Lurks and its spread. There was no sliver of doubt in me that Rugna, like the entire world recovering from the COVID pandemic, had created a plot which was an ominous commentary on how rampant a spread of a disease can be to mankind. In terms of a horror movie trope, this was a classic invasion of the body snatchers and many classic alien invasion or zombies apocalypse features, where the protagonists just had to flee to survive and held on to any hope that the chain of unfortunate events would end eventually. I also felt that Rugna might have used the disparity in the decision making between the brothers and their wealthy boss and the authorities could be a commentary of the social issues shrouding Argentina at this moment. A piece of trivia was that Rugna's inspiration came from a series of news stories about farm pesticides causing widespread health issues. The greed of the profiteers and the ignorance of the city dwellers made him thought of how lurking evils was given free rein to spread. As mentioned, I found parallels between these two Rugna's films. Firstly, the vast nature of the haunting and the horror. Rugna loves a wider scope in terms of repercussion and ingeniously displayed the scope without incurring massive budget. There was a lack of a religion or a faith which people could hang on to. There was a special group of people in the movie to cleanse any form of evil, but that was as generic as it could be. Lastly, the open-endedness of the final act of these movies, which left audience thirsty to find out more. For Aterrados, Rugna had a script for a sequel, but he had no updates with regards to where we would go with this movie. When Evil Lurks was a hidden gem of a horror movie, being distributed by Shudder, those with that specific streaming platform would have watched it and spread the good words about it. It was never too late to discover it. I will give it 9 upon 10. It was not perfect, but perfection was always difficult for horror genre. It was gratifying to find filmmakers all over the world ramping up their creative juices to deliver horror movies that break the mold of the typical Hollywood studio productions. Lights Out Family, I will strive to bring you more non-cookie cutter features in future episodes of After Dark. Wait a minute! Bonus review! Demian Rugna was one of the 5 featured Latin American directors in the 2022 horror anthology known as Satanic Hispanics. Rugna written and directed the segment También Lo Vi, or loosely translated as I Saw It Too. También is about Gustavo, played by Damian Salomon, Rugna's muse, a brilliant yet reclusive Rubik Cube competitor. He thought he'd uncovered a portal to the netherworld with his cube-solving skill using light on the stained glass of his grandma's house and had been trying to prove it to people. He might have overdone it with his spare time and it brought him misfortunes. This segment could generally be incorporated into Aterrados, and that grandma's house does not look out of place in that cursed neighborhood. Gustavo and Walter from the movie, who were played by the same actor, could be the same person with their solitude and tampering with fire. There were the usual WTF moments from Rugna, but this could be his weakest material from recent times. Once again, there was the open-endedness of the fate of our protagonist, though I have a rough idea of his eventual outcome. As for the rest of the anthology film, we have Ephraim Ramirez from Napoleon Dynamite as the Crypt Keeper type narrator, and had a Terminator-style action set piece from his segment from director Mike Mendez. One of the directors of the Blair Witch Project, Eduardo Sanchez, gave us a Hispanic version of What We Do in the Shadows in El Vampiro. It was very televisual but had its funny moments. I thought Gigi Saúl Guerrero's Nahuales had the most intrigue and looks promising like Apocalypto meets Green Inferno. But in the end, it seems like a lecture to the audience to conserve Mother Nature. One of the Dead director, Alejandro Brugués, gave us The Hammer of Zanzibar, an ode to films like From Dusk Till Dawn, and also not discreet about what kind of prawn material he enjoyed. I love anthology films and likely would do a feature or two on this platform. But Satanic Hispanics was lukewarm at best. Even with Rugna's involvement, that left a lot to be desired. This was a 5/10 from me. So there you have it. I think I have accomplished my adoration to director Demian Rugna, and to inform everyone to keep a lookout for what he will contribute to the horror genre in the future. Please like and subscribe to the Lights Out Ghost Stories YouTube channel, and also join our Facebook group for updates and funny posts from our members. Buenos noches, mi familia.